Let's bring in Shams Charania from The Athletic, who a few minutes ago broke the story of the Wizards-Bulls trade that sends Jabari Parker and Bobby Portis to D.C. in exchange for Otto Porter Jr. and his significant contract. Shams, how did this one come about?
Yeah, so the Wizards finally started to look at teams for Otto Porter potentially over the last several days, and the Bulls have explored several trade opportunities with both Portis and Parker. Obviously, Parker has wanted out of his situation for several months now, and they landed a deal. It now relieves Washington with significant salary over the next couple of years. Now that salary will go to Chicago, the 2 years, $50 million plus, and will then give the Wizards two young forwards that they can build around in Bobby Portis and Jabari Parker. Now, Jabari Parker is probably a one-year situation. He's got a team option for next year that probably will not get picked up. But Bobby Portis very well could be a cornerstone piece for the Wizards.
Shams, you said that they just started looking at names and places for Otto very recently. I'm assuming that's tied to the John Wall injury news. Has that also put in place some other people that may get moved in Washington? What else are you looking for there?
Yeah, you know, the big word out of Washington over the last several days, even before the John Wall injury, was, listen, we're not going to go into full tank mode. We're not going to start, getting rid of guys like Otto Porter, Trevor Ariza, and then they get rid of Otto Porter today in the deal with Chicago. So I think the fact that they got off Otto Porter, who even the owner, Ted Leonsis, said last week that we would not trade Otto Porter, Bradley Beal, or John Wall, the fact that they're now off Otto Porter leads you to believe that Trevor Ariza, Markieff Morris, and Morris has gotten some interest on the market from several teams. So I would expect them to start exploring both of those guys here shortly.
Shams, this is Tom Penn. Are you surprised at the velocity of movement here in players? These number of deals that have happened at the deadline seems very unusual. And what are you hearing from other executives out there? Are they feeling the pressure? Do they need to make a move? You think it'll lead to more before 3 o'clock tomorrow?
I think there have just been so many scenarios that, Tom, you've done it. Griff obviously has done it. There's always going to be 30, 40 scenarios that you're probably going through, guys, right, in your board, and probably really start to narrow it down to 2, 3, or 4 when it really starts coming down to deadline week. I think that's exactly what I've seen. I mean, there were probably 30 or 40 scenarios you look at last week, the week before that, and then it really starts to get narrowed down. I do think there will be even more action tomorrow. There's still guys, Marc Gasol, potentially Mike Conley, Anthony Davis, several guys that still remain on the market at a high level.
Yeah, let's talk about Gasol in particular. I was reading about the scene last night in the Grizzlies locker room where there was a trash bag half filled with his stuff next to his locker. They started disassembling his locker, but so far at least he's still on that roster. How likely is he to move between now and the deadline?
I think it's very likely. So the Memphis Grizzlies and Charlotte Hornets started to really pick up their conversations yesterday before the Grizzlies game, and that is what allowed Memphis to shut down Marc Gasol yesterday in their game, and then he did not travel, as I reported today, he did not travel to their trip to Oklahoma City. And, the sides are still working on finding a deal. Marc Gasol is making $24.1 million this season, has a player option for next year. So there are a couple scenarios that are still, I think there are a couple iterations of the deal they're still going through. They have to still work out what is Marc Gasol going to do with his player option. Will he talk to Charlotte at some point to sort out any potential details, what his extension number might look like? There are several different hurdles that this scenario has to reach, but this is definitely a very serious discussion.
Shams, one of the other big deals that took place sort of in the middle of the night last night, Tobias Harris and Mike Scott going to Philadelphia. To us here, that seems like it might shake up a little bit of the top of the Eastern Conference and maybe bring about something of an arms race. Is there anything you're hearing about other Eastern Conference playoff teams countering that move?
Yeah, I think Indiana has probably in the last couple of days started to finally look at their potential options. They've poked around on Mike Conley, done their due diligence on a guy like Mike Conley, but I think overall that was a very drastic move by Philadelphia. They needed to get another player in there, make sure that they're able to get another secondary star free agent this upcoming summer. So now they're going to have Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris as free agents. So you never know how free agency goes. One guy could bolt, one guy could stay. Now they have two guys potentially that they can invest in for the long term. But Philadelphia was canvassing the league everywhere for a stretch four. I mean, Tobias Harris probably is. There's no one better you can go get, averaging over 20 points and over 40% from three-point range. He's been an all-star caliber player this year.
Shams, enough about the trade deadline. Let's talk about free agency. Looking ahead to the summer, 2 teams in New York, 2 teams in LA. So many other teams with major double-digit cap room can go get multiple players. Who do you think has the best track? Who's on the track to do something really game-changing this summer?
I would look at both of the New York teams. I think the Knicks, you're starting to finally see some kind of a vision, by Scott Perry, in their front office. I think they're showing a vision looking forward, and they have a plan of attack, that you probably haven't seen at MSG. And I think even in the Nets, I think the Brooklyn Nets, the culture that they've built this year for D'Angelo Russell to be a cast-off with the Lakers, who selected him number 2 overall several years ago, and to be an all-star this year, just to me is a sign of how they develop players and how they're building really a franchise and an environment in Brooklyn. So I think I would probably lean, Tom, you mentioned the 2 markets. I would probably lean toward the New York markets first, but anytime you have LA, that's going to be an attractive destination as well.
Going to be a great horse race this summer. Anthony Davis is not playing tonight, despite the fact that I guess medically he could play tonight in Chicago in his hometown. The thinking, of course, being we're not going to do anything with the trade deadline tomorrow. The conventional wisdom seems to be that the Pelicans are better served by waiting until summertime. What are the chances that AD gets moved tomorrow?
Yeah, I don't know if he's even expecting at this point. I think it's fluid. I don't know how serious the Lakers talks really are in the Pelicans' mind. I think they're keeping an open mind. They always have. We have a full summer. Their deadline isn't until February. There's no, there isn't really a proven track record for a player to request a trade and then a week and a half later get his wishes and right to the team that he wants. We've seen Kyrie Irving, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Jimmy Butler. They all had a wish list. They all had a set list of teams. Neither got traded to that team. So, I think the Pelicans are still going to be listening to several teams. I'm sure the Lakers will make several final attempts at trying to get a deal done. But, there's several teams around the league that believe that the Pelicans will wait for the summer. And, the Celtics are salivating over the potential for them to get in the race come June and July.
Wait, I thought the Lakers were done making deals, right? They're not picking up the phone anymore. They're not doing anything until the Pelicans come back and get off of their, what do they call them? Ridiculous demands? I think that was the word.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone, around the Lakers had an understanding. They're going to need to throw the house at the Pelicans to get any type of a reaction. And Dell Demps, their GM, has been picking up the calls. He's been listening, but in the first initial offers, it wasn't even close as far as to what the Pelicans had in mind. They were getting Rajon Rondo and Lance Stevenson as core parts of the deal. So, I think overall the Pelicans will continue to be patient with this.
Shams Charania on top of it and sure to break some more news in the next 20 hours or so before the deadline. We appreciate you taking the time.
Matt, Tom, Dave, appreciate it. Thank you.